Welcome to the Business Trendsetter Podcast, Innovators series, where we uncover and discover the story behind the story of business owners, entrepreneurs, people that have taken the plunge. And today's guest has certainly done that a couple times and is really an entrepreneur in every sense of the word. My friend and brother, John Aldecoa, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man.
Now, John and I have known each other for, I think, almost 30 years when we were in the fraternity together. And I know that back in the day, John, you started off with a restaurant called DJ's that was very popular in Tucson, and help give me an understanding and our viewers the idea that you were in engineering school and then what? You decided to start a restaurant? How'd that all happen?
Well, as most engineers go, you get a degree and you start a restaurant. That's what engineers do, right? No, I always worked in the restaurant business since I was about 15 years old. Lied and said I was 16. And by the time I was 16, I was a nighttime supervisor managing the store. Wow. For the owner. And worked all through college and kind of got scorned by corporate America. I did 3 summer internships at Procter & Gamble. And was sold on being a Procter & Gamble, hire. But then the politics of big business got involved, and a new plant manager came in and asked me to be his caddy. And I'm like, I'm not going to carry your golf clubs.
Seriously, his caddy?
Yeah, he asked me to be a caddy, to go golfing as his caddy. And I was like, the guy was a real tool. So obviously I didn't get the permanent position. The site manager that I worked the previous 2 summers with was in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I got a job offer there. But as you know, being in the Southwest, I'm a desert rat, so there's no way I was moving to Wisconsin. And so I said, heck with that, I'm going to open my own business. So me and my brother borrowed some money from one of my uncles, and that's how DJs got started.
And so when you were thinking about the restaurant business and all the possibilities, obviously you're Mexican-American and you have a whole background in that. I mean, culturally, but DJ's was kind of like a sports bar kind of, what was that? What made you make that jump to create DJ's?
It was pizza and wings. Well, the one thing that, the reason why restaurants are probably the most, probably hardest to see, getting only like 1 in 5 make it past 5 years, something like that. It's a pretty low stat. I don't know those current stats. Post-COVID, but the one thing, I guess the rule in business is do what you know, right? So I've been working pizza business, since I was 15, so that's the business I knew. So that's why, even though I love Mexican food and Mexican descent and know how to make great Mexican food, that really wasn't what I knew. I didn't know that business, So we did what we knew, and that's what we did with DJ's.
Yeah, and so DJ's was, when did you actually transition away? When did you close it down?
I was open from 93 to 99, so it was like 6-year run. We basically got in a dispute with our landlord, and that's basically how it ended.
Yeah, it's interesting how I have a lot of other friends that own restaurants and bars and all that, and like you said, if they make it past the 5 years, what usually brings them down is not that they're not selling food or whatever. It's usually some random thing. A buddy of mine, he closed his restaurant because him and his wife got into a big squabble. They got divorced, and the restaurant was in the crosshairs, so they walked away. And so you were doing that, and I know you had other things going on with, you kind of went back into corporate world after that, right? After DJ's?
Right. Yeah, after DJ's closed, I went back fell back on my engineering degree, and then got into IT technology, and kind of still do that to this day. That's my primary source of income. And then my brother stayed in the restaurant business. And when DJ's closed, he actually went to Vegas and worked the Vegas circuit there. And was one of the opening managers at the Paris Hotel. And they just did that casino in the food and beverage. In fact, the Paris Hotel was the first casino on the Strip to actually make more money off their food and beverage than they did off the casino.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Changed the whole industry. So you remember back in the day, you used to get like a buffet for nothing, like $5, so it's super cheap.
Right.
As you go back to Vegas now, there's nothing cheap about it at all.
No, not at all.
So food and beverage, is becoming a big industry out there. The reality of it is, my brother worked the circuit, and then he took a position in New York City, where he started working at the Exit House. We started working at the Excess House, right? Excess. Yeah. Anyway, the big hotel, avant-garde, right there on South Central Park, right? And Essex House, that's what it is.
That's right.
And he eventually became the food and beverage director running the whole hotel. I started doing consulting and then opened up the restaurant with a buddy of his in Massachusetts, in the Berkshire, and started doing other concepts in consulting. He's like, hey, we should do a concept in Tucson.
So that's how it happened. He basically put the bug back in your ear. And did he put you out as a scout to find a location, or what was the impetus of Brother John's?
We put together a business plan, tried to come up with a concept, and basically we were going off the trends that we were seeing in New York City where he lived, right? So one of the things that was going on in New York City back in the early 2000s was a big barbecue movement in New York City, as well as a big whiskey movement. And the one thing that Tucson definitely didn't have a large representation of was good whiskey and good barbecue. A lot of good Mexican restaurants, lots of other restaurants, but pretty limited on the barbecue and the whiskey.
Yeah, I think I remember talking with you right as you had acquired the building. So just first of all, for our audience, John and his brother and partners own a wonderful restaurant called Brother John's Beer, Bourbon, and Barbecue. I hope we got that in the right order. And it's a phenomenal place. It's not only amazing food, but the ambiance, the vibe, the energy is just, it just feels really good. It feels like home. And so what was the idea? I mean, I kind of know the answer because I know the former building, but talk to us about that former building and how you transformed it to what Brother John's is now. Because that's a transformation.
Yeah, we kind of stumbled across that building. The reality of it is it was closed for about 2 years, but before that, this building was an icon of the city. It was part of growing up, in Tucson. And it was called the Wildcat House, named after the University of Arizona Wildcats. So, and it was a 10,000 square foot bar, not a window in the place. So, it was truly a nightclub, a big box nightclub. Had a kitchen in it, but in general, it was a big open space, and I think their occupancy was like 1,000 people, 999, something ridiculous like that. So it's a huge building. So we were looking for some place where we could put the concept of beer, bourbon, and barbecue, because Tucson is a beer town. Arizona is a beer state.
Right.
I don't know if you know this or not, but Arizona is per capita the largest consumer of beer in the United States.
Really?
And just in pure quantity and consumption, there's only 2 states that consume more beer than Arizona, and that's Texas and California.
Wow.
And they literally have 10 times our population, right?
Yeah.
So just on pure volume, we're number 3 in the country. Per capita, we're number 1 by far. And if you live in Arizona, those of you that are here locally or in southern Arizona, it's always beer drinking weather. It's never not a good day to have a beer. If you live where you're under frozen tundra, then sometimes beer doesn't seem so appetizing, right? It's like maybe want some whiskey or something to warm you up a little bit. But in Arizona, it's always a nice warm day to have a beer. And so it's just that, and I don't know how much the Mexican culture plays into that as well, but nevertheless, we'll let that lie where it is. But we are a large consumer of beer. So when we did the bourbon and barbecue, smoked meats with smoked liquor, we could not include beer because Tucson's a beer town. So the concept beer, bourbon, barbecue. So we were looking for a place we wanted someplace that we could literally have an outdoor space as well as an indoor space. Our original concept before the beer and bourbon, we were thinking about doing a beer garden. It was like our original.
Yeah.
But Tucson doesn't really know what a beer garden is.
Right.
And a proper beer garden doesn't even really have very much food. It has like 4 or 5 food items. It's really just games and beer.
Yeah.
Enjoying the weather and family type of environment. So different in Bulgaria, they're all over the place in Europe, and they're all over the place in New York City. But Tucson doesn't have that European roots. So when you talk about a beer garden, no one's going to hang out in Tucson like they do in New York. So we kind of abandoned that. We still wanted the beer garden. So we kept the beer, bourbon, barbecue together. And the Walker House, it turned out our broker was in a meeting with another broker that announced that he had closed the deal on purchasing the Walker House. And he's like, I might have a tenant for you. And that's kind of what came to be. So the building was there for 40 years as the Walker House. And it was
I remember.
built in the early 70s, 1973 is when they pulled the permits. Not exactly sure when they opened, but 75 approximately, 74, somewhere in there. And when it was open, there was only one business for almost 40 years. It closed in 2012. It was vacant for those 2 years, and then our landlord bought it, and we rented it from her almost the same day that she just bought it and she closed the deal. So it was much larger space than we had anticipated, but we got a good deal on it. And we converted the space, kind of broke it in half. Made half of it a restaurant and bar and some outdoor space, and then we created private dining for the other space. So that's really the method that we came up with, and we put the concept together. It was beer, bourbon, and barbecue always, but the catering and event spaces are probably what developed and kind of where we're growing now. That's kind of the area of emphasis.
Yeah, one thing I appreciate about the way you attacked the first problem as well as the second one, opening DJs and then opening Brother John's, is you really have an eye for the customer and understanding that first. A lot of people, not just restaurants, but just businesses in general, they tend to say, this is a great idea because they think it's a great idea, and they push it through without thinking about the customers. So did you have a lot of challenges with that, taking the idea to the market? Did you immediately have customers, or did you have to do some evangelizing of the concept?
The space itself, being the Wildcat House, it gained a lot of attention out the gate. So there were some definite advantages to occupying a building that was as iconic as that building was and has been for generations of folks, right? So we were able to benefit off that. On the other side, we did have to evangelize the concept because Tucson doesn't know what barbecue is. I remember when we first opened, some people complained that our barbecue wasn't smothered and covered in sauce. For a true smoker, for someone who's a smoker, aficionado, someone who really appreciates smoked meat, that's blasphemy. You don't put sauce on smoked meat. The meat should stand on its own, and the sauce is something you add later to kind of mix up your palate. It's not the essence of the barbecue. Right. The sauce is like, it's like putting ketchup on a steak, right?
Yeah.
Steak should stand on its own. You can add ketchup or steak sauce if you want, but that's not the essence of your meal.
Right.
So it was an education, because Tucson was just not known as a place that had smoked meats. And so it was, we had to kind of teach our folks. Now, we had visitors that come from out of town. They knew exactly what they wanted. Right. So it was introducing a new flavor palette. But also knowing that Tucson is so diverse and very rich in Mexican culture, we also knew that we had to kind of adapt as well. So if you look at our menu, you'll see some traditional Mexican dishes on there. Tacos, right? That's a staple in the Mexican diet. Is tacos. Yeah. But not how many restaurants have smoked brisket tacos, or smoked chicken, or a suadero, or smoked meats that you put on tacos. So that's right. So we have that Southwestern twist in there from the get-go, just because that's where we are. We're in the Southwest.
So that's actually a good segue, because Were you a smoked meat chef when you started this, or did you have to learn?
We learned. So like I said, the smoked meat barbecue. Boy was growing up in New York City. I mean, New York City is not the South. New York City is, the glamour, the Big Apple.
Right.
And there were people lining up around the block.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were lining up because the whole low carb diet, the caveman diet, all that started gaining popularity, and people started recognizing that the protein has a less of an impact on your waistline than all carbs do. And so, just in general, the trend started going. And so, when we recognized there, if New York's making it work, it's going to keep going. It's going to spread, right? So that's why we kind of jumped on that and kind of used that as an initiative, and with the smoked liquors too, because the bourbon scene, now it's huge. But in 2008, the bourbon scene was nothing. You could still find Pappy Van Winkle at stores back then.
Yeah,
you can't even find them now. Now they're allocated. But so it's a whole different times.
Yeah, you said something there. You've said it a couple times in this conversation, that the idea of trends. And so at Spark Partners, our number one tenet, our mission is really to help companies understand trends, how they operate, how they work. And we typically talk about some of these mega trends like demographics, AI, the gig economy, the environment, mobility, connectedness, and I can go on, but those are like the top 6. Now, you've touched on some smaller micro trends, right? They're not things like the carnivore diet, paleo diet, all that, bourbon, all that. What do you see as the next emerging trend, micro trend, if you will, in either the restaurant business in general, or even the restaurant industry in Southern Arizona?
Well, for us, one of the things that we've identified is, your regular a la carte business, it's pretty, continually up and down, right? When people have extra disposable income, they go out more. When they don't go out more. They're home. And so, the a la carte business for regular restaurants, what we've noticed is that having an event space, because people don't always celebrate their birthday, but they will every few years, right? They don't always celebrate their anniversary, but they will, when they hit a milestone.
Right.
And so, graduations, significant birthdays, significant anniversaries, weddings, baby showers.
Sure.
All your engagements, all these life events that happen, especially during COVID, because you couldn't celebrate them, right? Because you couldn't get out. You had to isolate yourself.
Yeah.
What we recognized is that adding that component to our concept has really stabilized our business and really allowed us to tap into a market that has tons of opportunity. Because one thing we noticed about event space here in Tucson or in general is the quality of food that you get at most of these events are pretty subpar. Pick your location.
Yeah, I can attest to that.
I'm not gonna put any of the best or say anybody's, but when people make food for more than 30, 40, 50 people, more than 100 people, let's face it, the quality is a challenge. But one of the things that we recognize, especially with barbecue, is that the effort it takes for me to make food for 100 people versus 500 people isn't that much of a difference.
Right.
So I can execute the quality at a much higher level for large quantity of people and deliver it in a way that feels that it's a small meal, custom gourmet meal, but for a large event. So
right.
For us, that's something that we've recognized. I don't know if it's a trend or not, but I think it's just an observation. Being that we had this huge 10,000 square foot building, and we carved off some space because it just would have been very unpleasant to be in a building that's 10,000 square feet, and you're by yourself, or there's 20 people eating, you feel like you're in a dungeon, right? So creating that other space was at first a necessity just to make it more comfortable. But really, it opened our eyes to a whole other opportunity for business. And that's what we're doubling down on right now. You asked me how things are going. Things are going good right now. We just made a major investment in a commissary kitchen to produce our sides on bigger quantities, and then we took on additional event space as well. So yeah, we've invested a ton of money in that direction, and we're working to build the business that way. So that's our next trend for us. But that's our passion, and we happen to look out and have a space that has the event space available where most restaurants don't have them.
Yeah, I think, well, I can attest personal experience having had my 50th birthday there last year. And I go to lots of events. I was there a couple weeks ago at an event, and I like the space just because it's open, but it also has a homey feeling to it. So you've been able to sort of to blend those together. And the fact that you've identified the the catering and the commissary kitchen as a new endeavor, I mean, that's very bold. The customer has a tendency to be finicky, right? Have you changed your menu to adjust to their needs, or has it been kind of the same, like a take it or leave it attitude?
No, we've adjusted. In fact, there are some items, even though we took them off the menu, not because we couldn't execute them, but the fact was that they took too long to execute, where they would delay the productivity of the kitchen. So there were some items we took off the menu, even though they were amazing and people loved them, because of the level of effort it required to produce them, and then the variability of people, hamburgers, right? I don't know if you've noticed that outside of going to like a fancy restaurant, like a steakhouse, you really can't get your hamburger tempt anymore, right? It's either it's cooked. That's it.
Right.
The smash burger, whatever you want to call it, that whole scene is, you can't get 10 burgers at any fast food. They're all cooked all the way through.
Right. Exactly.
And so when we were doing fresh ground half-pound patties, and someone wants a well done, that's a 20-minute cook time on a well done burger. And we're a smaller, our kitchen wasn't set up to produce burgers. So we actually, even though we were voted the best burger in Arizona by Home Magazine National, we were picked Arizona's best burger. I took them off the menu because it was causing too many other problems in the kitchen. And we were throwing half the burgers out. Half the quality of my cooks, suffered after COVID. We lost a lot of good cooks, and tempting the burger is hard to make it perfectly a medium well or a medium rare. Well done
right.
versus rare. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that takes a lot of courage. A lot of business owners, they want to stay with whatever they have because that's the way they want it. But you've recognized that it would have a detrimental effect on other aspects of your business. Do you see yourself expanding beyond Tucson? Is that one of your thoughts, or are you pretty ingrained in the old Pueblo?
Right now, pretty ingrained in the Pueblo. We really are, our thought process right now is on the catering side, and then once we get to a certain level, we feel that we're in our stride. We'll probably stay pretty local here. Doesn't mean we wouldn't expand locally. Within Tucson, right. Tucson's a pretty big city demographically, so there's opportunity here. But yeah, I mean, right now that's our thought right now. But who knows? I mean, that's like I said, kind of where the trends go and what the customers tell us.
Well, what about this? Is going to cut a little closer to the bone. Has there been any time during when you started Brother John's when you were ready to throw in the towel? You were pretty close to being done, or you were just frustrated? A lot of people listening to this podcast are small business owners that want to expand, or maybe they have an idea and they're trying to figure it out. Have you ever been to that point where you wanted to maybe throw in the towel?
That first year we were open, the first year, 18 months, there was times where it's like, is this worth it? Is this really worth it? Maybe we take our losses and cut bait now, type of thing. But it was really that first year and a half or so that was really challenging.
And I assume you're glad you didn't do that.
Yeah, we have challenges now, but they're not the same as they were back then. So we've established a base, and now even though we are expanding within on the catering side and really taking on that investment, it's challenging as well, but not to the point where I'm throwing the towel. It's just like, okay, what do we got to do to get past this? What do we got to do to make it past the next milestone so that we can start seeing the fruits of our labor?
Right. One of the big trends that we talk a lot about is demographics. And there's demographics in the pure sense where people live and where they move to and how old they are and when they die and when, the birth rate, all that. There's the classical demographics, but there's also a more microclimate of demographics. Do you see demographics playing a role in your business? Is there a cycle to your business?
As far as demographics in regards to more like socioeconomic demographics, most definitely. Really, one of the things about restaurants in particular is they're on the luxury side of life, right? They're not a necessity.
Mm-hmm.
So that's so as socioeconomics change and the economy changes, and as the population changes in their habits, it's we have to adapt. We have to continue to grow and adapt. I think that, Brother John's, the menu you see today is similar, but it's nothing like the menu you saw 9 years ago.
Right.
And I think as we move into catering and expand our concept in that space, you're going to see even more changes.
What about, do you see the summer slump come in at all? Do you feel that?
Yeah, we think about the city drops in population by a couple 100,000 people. So, and think about it. If you live in Tucson, the average temperature from daytime highs from October through April are in the 80s, 70s, right? And then, come June, July, August, they're in the hundreds. And so if you have disposable income and your kids are out of school, are you hanging out in Tucson? No, you're going to San Diego, you're going to the mountains, you're going to the beach, you're getting out of town. And so we do see a big hit, because we lose a lot of the affluent population, because the ones that eat out a lot, they're gone. They're doing other things. And, so that's where we understand that. We see the trends. We know that. We're hoping the catering aspects of it, because people still have events. Babies are still born in the summer, and people still get married in the summer, but it's cheaper because the resorts aren't on a waiting list. So now you can have a wedding at a ballroom now half the price in June and July than you would pay in April. So
sure.
So there's opportunity. So we're just trying to find our spots there where we can help stabilize and bring up that base.
Well, there's one parting question I ask all of our guests, and that is, if you had the ability to have a magic telephone to give yourself a call back when you were 20 years old and tell yourself some level of something, what would you tell yourself?
Oh man, that's not on your prep list. I didn't see that. I probably would. When I look back, I don't have a lot of regrets. I guess for me, probably the biggest thing I would tell myself is to focus on the fundamentals and be more business savvy, as opposed to, you have to think like a businessman and not think like a friend. Because I think I made a lot of decisions with my first business where I valued the friendship of that person as opposed to the business ethics of what we were doing. And I ended up getting myself got the short end of the stick more than a couple of times. So I think that's something that that separation. And as we get older, we know in business and in leadership, you have a job, you got jobs what you're working on, regardless of the relationship, but you got to balance. But ultimately, you got to make the best decision for the business ahead of necessarily over friendship or making someone not want to upset somebody. But sometimes you just got to make those hard decisions for the bottom line. So I can see that happening several times in my career where I was a little too soft, I guess, or not soft. I just didn't make the right decision that eventually cost me some money and some time.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty powerful message. How can people find out more about Brother John's Beer Barbecue and Beer, Bourbon, and Barbecue?
I would just come out to the website, www.brotherjohnsbbq.com. We've got all our stuff out there, and we have all our event space out there. You can take virtual tours of all our event space. You can see pictures of our food. And we also have a calendar with all our live music and stuff like that. So it's a fun concept and also very accommodating and welcoming for large groups and small groups.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for this time. I'll actually be there on Tuesday. I'll say hello if you're around. But thanks for your time, John. Appreciate the opportunity, and have a great rest of the week.
All right. You too.
Cheers.